becomes the question now. So this is probably because of the binding that currently exists in the MySQL config file, right? Now to carry on, we now have to log on to our MySQL server instance. So don't forget that this is the section of the terminal that's on the left, right? Okay, so now let's log on to this part. We're now logging into this part of the server. So this is where our MySQL is being hosted. We're now logging in here because we need to edit the my.cnf, right? That way we will be able to run, I'm sorry, I've stopped it. Okay, let me restart. It's up now. That way we will be able to run and go past the error 2003 where we're failing to access uh, the MySQL database that is hosted on this IP, right? So we keep getting this error. I don't know if you can see clearly, but this is the error that we're trying to eliminate, right? The MySQL error 2003. If you're seeing this error, then it means your MySQL client module has successfully installed and it has managed to solve the problem that got us to create this tutorial. The the problem that Ananya brought forward, right? So now let's log in. After logging in, so on the right we have the Superset server, and then on the left we have the MySQL server. We can even use find, but then still, let me do the longer way. Um, /etc/ms MySQL, and if you list, you're going to see that we have this symbolic link my.cnf pointing to that point, right? Um, and we also, so this is not the one that what we are going to edit. So this is a bit different for each, might be different for your operating system. If it is backward, probably in Ubuntu 16.04 going backward, it was different. It was directly here. This one is now a bit different. So if we open it up, for example, if we say sudo nano my.cnf, the instruction that we are looking for, we're not going to find it. We're simply going to find these two, right? Exit here, and then go into, if we list, we need to go into the last directory there, cd mysql, this one, right? Let me clear. Now if we list, we now have two files and we want to edit the first file here. So we say sudo nano mysql d.cnf. Now this is the file that we want to edit and change the bind address from the localhost 127.0.0.1 to 0.0.0.0. Mind you, this is just for the security purposes of this tutorial. We are not focusing on the security. So the bind address now, we're gonna have to change it from 127.0.0.1 to two quad zeros, like so, and then you save it, then you exit. After saving it, let's clear that. After saving it, you're going to see that if we try now to connect, we're not going to keep getting this error 2003. So let's see if what we have done has been successful. Let's refresh again. We're still getting the same error. Why? Because we edited our config file but didn't restart the service. So sorry about that. I should have remembered. So sudo systemctl restart. Come on, it's getting late. MySQL.service. Okay. Now that we have restarted it, we can check the status, but I'm pretty sure it's now running. It's now running, right? Go back to our Apache web application, refresh, try to reconnect again. We're supposed to get another error 1100. Now, if you see, we were getting error 2003, right? But now that we are past that, we're getting error 1130. So error 1130 simply means that the person that we're trying to connect uh, with is not actually allowed to connect from a remote location. We're trying to connect. So the user that we created back then, Yui, with the password logged on this IP address, he is logged to that IP address, to the local IP address. They cannot access it when they are in a different IP address, right? So this one we're trying to access for using US credentials, but then we are on uh, an IP address that is different from the one that is housing the MySQL server. So that way, that's why we are getting 1130, the error 1130. So what we simply need to do is to add it out and then add a record. So we're going to say sudo mysql -u root using root and password that one. And then what is the database? And then MySQL, right? So let's use MySQL database. Okay, so I'm going to say select host, user, so this is what I'm saying. So we have a user called Yui, and the host that has been specified or allocated is localhost. So what we now need to do is to do sort of like a wildcard to create uh, a privilege for him to access from any remote source, right? So he doesn't have to access this database only when he is located on the or from the localhost, but rather he can also access it from the outside, any other remote source. So to do that, we're going to say to grant all privileges, just like what we used, uh, pretty much the same command that we used when we were creating user, but then this time it's a bit different. Mm, to UERT. So to say at any remote source. So I'm going to use this one, but I want you to understand one thing, that but you can specify the IP address of the machine that you want UE to access it on, right? So I'm going to use the %sign, the modulo, this one, right? But you can use a specific IP address. I can come here and just grab the IP address part and terminate. Trust me, you can, or you rather specify just one IP address. It's more secure, right? Get it right. So we want to say, what we were saying is we want to access the database on that server if we are trying to access it from this remote source. Don't forget it. So if we want to say any, instead of specifying the IP address, if you want to say any remote source, you simply put the modulo sign, like so, between the quotes, right? And then any host, they can use the modulo sign. So I'm supposed to select MySQL server right here, that instance, and then copy the public DNS. After copying it, and then now go back to our superset, then we change it to that one. So if you can see, if you can tell from all this, that this will be, generally this will be the IP address. So the IP address has to be different from the IP address of our superset. Like what I was doing, I had not cross-checked that I had copied the public DNS of the superset server instead of the MySQL server. So now that after granting the privileges to our user, after restarting our after restarting our MySQL service, so this is where we left off. Um, we have explicitly specified the IP address of the superset server. So now we're saying each time UE tries to access the database on this server, the MySQL server, coming or from the superset server hosted on this IP address, and after providing a password of this value, then allow him access. So flashing privileges is not really important anymore here, since we've already used the grant. So now if we say select all, we're going to have this table again. It's different, like I said a bit earlier. We're going to have this table, two different tables, and then there is one table that is specific for one host for that same user UE, one host for a local host, and then the other host is residing on that IP address, right? So now if we go back, and then let me copy here so that I don't have to rewrite this. We refresh. After refreshing, we create a connection name, then we put that, and then we test. Voila, now it works. We can select to upload a CSV, to use this database to upload CSVs, and as well as accessing data on it. So after that, the rest is history. We can now save. We now have a successful connection of all my AWS database that is residing on a different EC2 instance, right? And we can do the rest as usual. We can, for example, go to our SQL editor, and then select my AWS DB. And then it's gonna populate with all schemas. We choose my AWS DB. It's gonna show us the tables like that, and then we can do pretty much anything now. And I would also like to point out that it is also possible for you to use the specific IP address. Like for example here, instead of using the public DNS like that, you can just use the public IP address for your MySQL server and then paste it there, keep the semicolon, full colon, and then the port number and test. Without wasting much of your time, I'd like to thank you and ask you to subscribe, give me comments, tell me what you. Uh, Thank you for watching. Until next time, I'm out.